2. The vows of the Beth Lewis Nyan make a complementary seasonal sequence, and like the vows of the Babeloth represent stations in the year, I take them to be the trees particularly sacred to the white goddess who presided over the year, and to whom the number 5 was sacred. For Gwion, in his poem Cadir Taliesin, the chair of Taliesin, which was the chair that he claimed as chief poet of Wales after his confounding of Heenan and the other bards, describes the cauldron of inspiration, Serwin's cauldron, as sweet cauldron of the 5 trees. In Crete, Greece, and the Eastern Mediterranean, in general, sacred trees are formalized as pillars, so these 5 trees may be the same as the 5 pillars with vertical and spiral flutings, which a man is shown adorning in a Mycenaean cylinder seal. Where's that at? Okay. 2. In the newly discovered Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, 5 trees of paradise are mentioned, but these are emblems of the 5 deathless ones, namely Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Enoch, and Elijah. I got to go back and read these footnotes because they're girthy and I don't want to miss them, so I'm going to read them. 1. It is likely that Gwion was also aware of the value given to the number 5 by the Pythagoreans and their successors. The Pythagoreans swore their oaths on the holy tetrax, a figure consisting of 10 dots arranged in a pyramid thus. There's a picture. The top dot represented position, the 2 dots below, extension, the 3 dots below those, surface, the 4 dots at the bottom, 3-dimensional space. The pyramid, the most ancient emblem of the triple goddess, was philosophically interpreted as beginning, prime, and end, and the central dot of this figure makes a 5 with each of the 4 dots of the sides. 5 represented the color and variety which nature gives to 3-dimensional space and which are apprehended by the 5 senses, technically called the wood. A quincunx of 5 trees, this colored various world was held to be formed by 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and the quintessence of or soul, and these elements in turn corresponded with seasons. Symbolic values were also given to the numerals from 6 to 10, which was the number of perfection. The tetractys could be interpreted in many other ways, for instance, as the 3 points of the triangle enclosing a hexagon of dots, 6 being the number of life, with a central dot increasing this to 7, technically known as Athene, the number of intelligence, health, and light. 2. To judge from a design on a glass dish of the Seleucid epoch showing the facade of Solomon's temple as rebuilt by Zerubbabel on the original Phoenician model, the spirally fluted pillars correspond with Boaz, Solomon's right-hand pillar dedicated to growth and the waxing sun. The vertically fluted with Jachin in his left-hand pillar dedicated to decay and the waning sun. The symbolism became confused when the Jews made their New Year correspond with the autumn vintage festival, for the pillars were then referred to as Jachin and Boaz, and not Boaz and Jachin, but the tradition remained Boaz is to Jachin as Gerizim is to Ebal, as blessing is to cursing. Gerizim and Ebal were the twin peaks covering the Ephraimite shrine of Shechem. Gerizim was on the right hand as one faced east from Shechem, Ebal on the left, and Shechem was a home of the Terebinth cult. In Deuteronomy 11:29, there is a prophecy attributed to Moses. You shall put the blessing upon Gerizim and the curse upon Ebal towards the entrance into Shechem, where dwell the Canaanites in the towered house beside the sacred Terebinth of Morah. This was as it should have been. The Terebinth, the hard-wooded Canaanite equivalent of Dur, the oak, was naturally placed in the middle, with Ebal on the unlucky left, Gerizim on the lucky right. A for alum. The first tree is the silver fir, a female tree with leaves closely resembling the yews, sacred in Greece to Artemis, the moon goddess who presided over childbirth, and the prime birth tree of northern Europe, familiar in the nativity context. In Ocherney, according to Roger's Social Life in Scotland, mother and child are seined soon after delivery with a flaming fir candle whirled 3 times round the bed. It is remarkable that alum in Old Irish also stood for the palm, a tree not native to Ireland, though it grew well on my grandfather's estate in Coe-Kerry. The palm, the birth tree of Egypt, Babylonia, Arabia, and Phoenicia, gives its name, Phoenix, bloody, to Phoenicia, which formerly covered the whole eastern Mediterranean, and to the phoenix, which is born and reborn in a palm. Its poetic connection with birth is that the sea is the universal mother and that the palm thrives close to the sea in sandy soil, heavily charged with salt. Without salt at its roots, a young palm remains stunted. The palm is the tree of life in the Babylonian Garden of Eden story. Its Hebrew name is Tamar. Tamar was the Hebrew equivalent of the great goddess Ishtar or Ashtaroth, and the Arabians adorned the palm of Nejran as a goddess, annually draping it with women's clothes and ornaments. Both Delian Apollo and Nabatene Dusars were both under a palm tree. In modern Irish, elm has come to mean elm under the influence of the Latin classics, for in Italy the elm, ulmus, which is not native to the British Isles, was used for supporting the young vine and so became the alma mater of the wine god. This interdependence of vine and elm was sanctified by the reference in the early Christian book of Revelation, the Shepherd of Hermas. But the silver fir, which also likes sandy soil and sea breezes, is as old a birth tree as the palm, being the tree under which the god of Byblos was born, the prototype of the pre-dynastic Osiris of Egypt. The Greek for fir is elate, and Pausanias' account of Elatos, the Akkadian, is interesting. He was the father of Ischys. I can't say that word. I don't know how to say it. Ischys, the lover of Asclepius' mother and of Selene, who gave his name to Mount Selene, until then nameless, which became the birthplace of Hermes. Other mythographers convert Selene into the nymph Selene, wife of Pelescus, who founded the Pelagian race. It seems that originally Elatos was Elate, the lofty one, a name transferred from Artemis to her sacred tree, an ivy-twined fir-cone-tipped branch of which was waved in her honor at the Dionysian revels, and that Selene, Silana, the curved queen, was another of her titles. The fir tree of the birth goddess is similarly transferred to her son in the myth of Attis, son of Nana, the Phrygian Adonis. He is said to have been metamorphosed into a fir by the goddess Sibyl, who loved him when he lay dying from a wound dealt him by a boar sent by Zeus, or else dealt him by a Phrygian king whom he had emasculated, and who emasculated him in return. Jesus, hold on. Yeah, let's keep going. The Trojan horse, a peace offering to the goddess Athene, originally the same white goddess, was made of silver fir, a horse, because sacred to the moon. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Was made of silver fir, a horse, because sacred to the moon. The Trojan horse, a peace offering to the goddess Athene, originally the same white goddess, was made of silver fir, a horse, because sacred to the moon. In the Museum of Newcastle on Tyne is a Roman-British altar dedicated to the mothers by one Julius Victor. 1. It shows a triangle standing on its base with a fir cone enclosed. Though Drontia, the name of the Gallic fir goddess, contains no reference to her own tree, it makes her queen of the Druids and therefore mother of the whole tree calendar. The silver fir has its station on the first day of the year, the birthday of the divine child, the extra day of the winter solstice. 13 weeks separate these stations, and the last of each was a death week and demanded a blood sacrifice. Gonna do this footer too, because it's a big one. 1. At Arles in Provence, the cult of the goddess as a triad or pentad of mothers has survived under Christian disguise until today, when her festival is celebrated from May 24th to May 28th, the middle of the Hawthorn or chastity month. But now her devotees are largely gypsies. As a triad, she has become known as the Three Marys of Provence, or the Three Marys of the Sea. As a pentad, she has had Martha added to her company and an apocryphal serving girl called Sarah. It seems that these were Christianizations of pre-Christian reliefs on the tombstones of the cemetery of Alicamps at Arles, in which the triad or pentad was shown on one panel and below on another the soul in resurrection. The scene was explained as the raising of Lazarus. As late as the time of Dante, the cemetery was used in the ancient style. The corpse was laid in a boat, the money in it, called Dru de Mortelege, and floated down the Rhone to the Alicamps. The name Alicamps has been explained in Campi Elysiani, the Elysian Fields, but it is as likely that Alice was the ancient name of the goddess. It may even be that the Homeric adjective Elysian, the E is a long one, is derived from her name. Alice also appears as Alice or Alice in many French place names. Dosat's Dictionnaire Etymologique under alias or Alice means a sheltered creek, derives it from the Gaulish word Alisa, perhaps pre-Celtic, which is represented by numerous place names and which must also have provided the Spanish word for alder, aliso. This makes good mythical sense because Calypso's sepulchral islands of Ogygia was screened by alder thickets. Alice or Halys is the name of the biggest river of Asia Minor, and that it is pre-Hellenic is shown by the town of Alissus. Assus is a Cretan termination built on the banks just before it turns north to empty into the southern Black Sea. There are also two Hales rivers, one in Iona, the other in Lusenia, which may be named after the same goddess. One name for the alder in German is Elise, corresponding with the Scandinavian word Eli. The Danish Elekong is the elder king, Bran, who carries off children to the other world, but Eli also means elf, which should be regarded as a Clethrad or alder fairy. Thus, in Goethe's well-known ballad based on his predecessor Herder's Stimmen der Volker, Ellerkong is correctly translated Erlkönig, the commoner German word for alder being Earl. That's it. God damn.